Hello guys, today I will show you the dependency injection technique inside Unity in a real world example. So I've created an example here. Let me show you. I have two scenes. The first scene I called no DE, no dependency injection, and the second scene the dependency injection. The scenes are equal. So the result, let me show you the result. Here I have a simple canvas with a text and a button. So the first text that shows is the subscribe to the channel now. And when we press the button change, it shows the please. So please subscribe to the channel. And it's very simple. Let me show you what is the code from here. First I will show the game manager. Let me close all these scripts here. Let me show you the game manager no DI. Here just has a simple public string with the value please and a smile face. And inside the UI manager no DI, we have the text, a reference to the game manager, a start function that implements this simple text here, and a function to change the button, taking the value from the game manager. I call game manager, but of course, obviously, it's not just game manager. Will be another name, but this is it for now. And we can see here that we are depending on implementation here, and we are depending on the game manager no DI to implement this code. So we need to inverse this, make the inversion using the dependency injection. So the code is very simple. Now we will see how to make the dependency injection and make the code more solid. Let me come to my DI scene. Let me show you the result of this scene. The value here is the same. Subscribe to the channel now, and please. But for now, let me show you the code. Of course, it's a little more scripts here because we need these scripts to make it work. We don't need this one here, but I did it to show you something more. And let me open the game manager DI. Here we have the same string as before, but now we have a value, a method. This method is coming from the game manager DI. That is an interface. Let's see this. And this interface has just a method called getValue that we need to implement. So very simple. You will see where this is needed. Now we need to see the UI manager DUI. It will implement the IUI game manager DUI. And here we lost the type reference to the game manager. Now we are passing the iGame manager DI that the game manager is implementing here. So we are not using this class directly. We are using the interface. This generates for us a polymorphism, and the IUI game manager has a constructor, so a method called constructor, and we have the same method here called change, and we get the value, the method from the game manager. We get that method called getValue. The game manager implements it here from the iGame manager DI, and we get the value from here. And let me show you this method, this interface. Here we have a constructor, and this constructor passes the reference that we need from the iGame manager, so we can have the polymorphism here. So we can have the polymorphism inside the UI game manager DI. And we need one more class. This class is the class that will initialize for us the dependencies. So this startup DI is the class that search, in this case, search for all the dependencies. So we have these dependencies from that script, and I put that dependency. I put these one more dependencies because we can use it. I will show you in a minute why I put this here. For the UI manager, for now we just have this dependency, this reference here. So inside the UI manager, remember that it has a constructor that needs a game manager. So we pass the game manager DI here, and in the awake, when this script is called, so let me show you where all the scripts are set up. So the first script I put here was the UI manager. The same is in the other scene that I don't show you. Inside the button, I took the canvas here, and inside the UI manager has the change method, and inside the game manager I put the game manager DI. The same was in the no DI scene, but here we put one more script called the startup DI script that we pass all the references here that we need. I will show the DI02 in a minute. And with that, we make the dependency injection, and we inverse the dependency from the UI manager that he had with the game manager. And the advantages of using it is because when we are in the startup DI, we can create a static variable, for example, or a singleton with that class, and we can create another method here, and inside this method we can set up at runtime what dependencies the UI managed UI will have. So if in the run for now in the awake we are pressing the game managed DI, but at runtime we can have another function here that we can call in some moment, and we can use the constructor again and pass, for example, this game managed UI 02, and inside the UI managed UI, when we press the button again, the constructor will set up the game manager using that new value, and the new in the change method will change the text to this new value. And let me give you an example here, not using singleton or static function, but using the update, and I will create input dot get key down key code, and I'll space. I think it's key code. Yep. And I will just take this and pass the 2 here, and at runtime we will change, and we can make it several times. Let me use S, so I use A here, just okay. Let's come back to Unity. So when I start the game, the first time the method will run inside the awake, and the constructor will be filled up with the first game manager. and I can press the change button here, and the please message appear. But when I press the S, I change again the text, the construct inside the construct I change. Now we are using the game manager 02, and when I press the change button, it will now appear this new text that now give a like to the video. And now when I press the A button, we can change to please. If I press the S, I can. So at runtime we can change the behavior using polymorphism, and this is the strength of the dependency injection. So I've made a simple diagram here so some people can understand better. So we have the class called UI. Inside this we have the text that depends some information from the game manager. So this arrow is meaning that we have some, the UI have a dependence from the game object, the game manager. So as I show you, if we have one more script here that needs to, the UI needs some information from, we will need to make some if else statements to have information from the game manager and for the game manager 02. So let me show you. That will happen that if we have a game manager and a game manager 02 with that tightly connection between UI in the game manager 2, we will need to use the if else statement to see if we are using this or that. And you can imagine that if you have more and more dependencies, we will have more and more if and else's, or another, or switch case, for example. But using these, but using these systems, what we did, we break out the dependencies. So this is the red axis here. We break out the dependencies. We need to create two interfaces. The first interface will be this one here. That will be, I put this orange square because it means that the UI now needs to implement the interface. Inside this interface has a constructor. This constructor you will pass will fill up the variable called iGameManager that we create inside the UI manager. It has a variable now called iGameManager, and with the constructor from the IUI we can fill up the reference, and the game manager and game manager 02 need to implement the iGame manager. Inside the iGame manager we have just a function, in this case that is the get value function, and the two game managers needs to implement that function, that because the UI will call this function using the reference from that we put inside the UI. And we need a start, because this start will look up. So the start UI will have all the reference needed from the UI to work. So if it has more dependencies here, we will fill up more fields here to create this dependence. And the startup now has all the dependencies that is needed for the UI to work. And we can call the constructor function here that we did inside the start method. So we can pass set up all the dependencies that the UI need. And finally, when the UI needs when the UI needs to work with something inside the game manager or game manager 02, it will just call the method get value that was already set up. So if you want this code, you can come here to my Patreon page, become my Patreon. In here I have several files from other tutorials that I'm making, so you can have all this. And give a subscription to my channel, give a like to the video, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers!